Welcome everyone to our regularly scheduled BrightID community call AMA. If you have questions, you can type those into chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll let you have the mic. Either way works. We don't have a topic today, so it's just whatever you all want to talk about. So does anyone have anything on their mind or any questions? How about you, Philip, since you're the only core team member who showed up today?
The first thing that comes to mind is related. Well, yeah, we'll get to B2 in a second. I recently learned that where the term AMA came from, and it quite surprised me. So
ask me anything. Where does it come from?
Well, so it originally came from a specific Reddit. This like one random person, and now I'm getting two things. It was either a dental hygienist or a flight attendant. I can't remember which one. That just sort of like said like, whatever, you can ask me anything you want, and this just like happened. And it grew out of Reddit, and it was just this like random, regular, run-of-the-mill person who hosted the first one, and then it just became a thing that now, giant organizations use and whatnot. But it all came out of just one person that was knowledgeable about an obscure topic saying, what do you want to know?
Yeah, I remember the AMA subreddit, and yeah, how it was pretty cool because interesting people who had some sort of interesting background or some interesting thing happened to them, they would come in and just say, yeah, ask me anything, nothing's off limits.
But it wasn't some grand design at the beginning. Of course it wasn't.
Yeah, that's cool.
One person that did it.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So let's talk about B2. B2, to get B2 verification, you need to make already known connections to people that you already know. And those people need to do the same thing. So as far as I know, we don't have a successful, we don't have a set of steps that we know is always successful. And I don't even think we have that many successful user stories where someone said, I wanted to get B2 verified for Mana. It's usually for Mana, because I don't think anything else is using B2 right now. I wanted to get B2 verified for Mana, and I did this and it worked and I got B2 verified. I've never heard that. The only successes that I've heard is someone's like, oh yeah, I was already B2 verified, and so I went and got my Mana. So how do we help people who are not yet B2 verified? I have some ideas, but I don't know of anything that always works. How about you, Philip?
I would agree with the assessment that, right, there's not a playbook to do for people that are on the outside. And yeah, I struggle to see exactly how there's gonna be until there's actual communities of people. So where I can see it easily working, we've long talked about college campuses being a great place to grow a social network. A bunch of the Web 2 social networks have grown in those kind of communities. It would be pretty easy, I think, to grow B2 in a place like that you get some core group of people. People are aware that those people have it. They hang out in this area at this time or whatever, right? It's some club, and other people can just physically go there, and then it's easy to find those people. In the world, in like the web world, it's trickier. I also, B2 flows through already known connection, what's the word, parallel already known connections. and that's tough. If I meet a new user and they're like, oh, I want to get B2, I can't mark them as already known. That would be inappropriate usage of the tools. So tricky.
Yeah, and so then Herman asked a follow-up question. Is there a minimum already known connections that we have to have? As soon as you have one, you can get B2 level 1. And I believe that means something in mana. And the more you get, the higher you get, the better. But you can start with just one, and I think it already gets you something. So
a little clarification, right? So
yeah.
Both people have to mark each other as already known. The first,
Right.
One of those people already needed to be B2 verified. So
Yeah.
and there's some time delay of a few days to recalculate who has B2.
Right. Yeah.
I think they're doing it 2 or 3 times a week now.
Okay.
So just those are the barriers, right? You got to find someone that's already B2 verified. You both need to mark each other as already known, and then you probably have to wait like 3 days.
Yep. So yeah, going back to the idea of communities, the times where I have seen it people be successful getting B2 verified, going from not B2 verified to B2 verified, they joined a community that uses BrightID and became active in that community. So I think your point is correct, that that's kind of like what will happen in the long term. If B2 is going to become successful in the long term, that's what will have to happen, is there will have to be so many communities that it's just easy for someone to find one that fits them, that is either geographically close or really aligns with something that they're doing anyway. And so they don't have to go very much out of their way, if at all, to make the connections they need to get B2 verified. So right now, yeah, the infrastructure is just not there. There's not that many communities. There are communities, mostly around apps and DAOs that are using BrightID. And you kind of just have to get to know other people using those apps or DAOs, and then you'll get BrightID verified. And then, yeah, we would love to see other people growing their own community. So we still do, even though it's a manual process, we still take applications for seed groups. So if you have a community and you can say, like, this is where we meet, either virtual, this is our Discord, or this is our physical location, this is where we meet, and we do BrightID connection making here, then you can register to become a seed group. And that kind of that allows other people to find you. And that's useful because then already verified B2 people can come and meet with your community, and you can get verified. So basically, you have two options. You can either go to Mount Fuji, or you can bring Mount Fuji to you by setting up your own community. And so it's like, yeah, either one works. Neither one is like one. It's so the difficulty compared to meets verification is, I don't know, somewhere between 10 times and 100 times more difficult, I would say, because like everything is just already set up and you can't really fail at the meets verification. It's set up so you just, like, we tell you where to go, you just have to look on a website, you show up and you get your meets verification. You've got to figure a lot out on your own to get the B2 verification. And there's people to help you, but it's like, you know, there's no set way that always works.
Right. Meets is a fairly mechanical operation. B2 is a social graph analysis. You know, you talk about how much easier it's also dramatically more accurate at Sybil prevention than meets.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to Aura because I think Aura is kind of like a makes it more clear what the verification will be. So I hope that the one that apps that are now using B2 will be able to soon switch to Aura. And so I think Aura with B2, it's kind of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the next step is. That's how it is for a lot of people that aren't B2 verified. With Aura, it will be very clear what the next steps are. It's still not going to be as easy as meets verification, but at least you will know what to do. So like you'll, in most cases, you'll know someone that is willing to play the Aura game, or you'll learn how to do it. So one of the two. So it's kind of like it's going to be a lot more straightforward than setting up your own community. Although we do try to make it easy to set up your community. So it really, if you want to set up a seed group and you want people to come to you and help other people get verified, you can do that. To give an example, like Songadao set up a community, and so that means that they can give out meets verifications themselves. And because they have this community and everybody knows where to go, they've had visitors such as myself come there and make connections with the group. And I've gotten to know some people there. And so now I've made already known connections with people there. And so now those people have B2 scores. So that's kind of like how it works. Where can I apply for seed? I'm setting up my university Discord server. Yes, perfect. Yeah. Okay, so let me paste the seed application. Yes, that's great. I love that you're doing that. If you have a university group, that's a perfect place for making BrightID connections. So okay, so there's a seed group nomination form. I'll just I'll paste the link in here, but then I will also share with you. So fill out this form, and I'll just tell you I'll just walk you through right now, and also for the benefit of the people that are listening to this recording. In the BrightID seed group nomination form, actually, maybe I'll share this screen. That's better than just like reading it and you're not seeing what I'm doing. So let me share. Let me pull it up in Firefox and then I'll share that. Okay. So let's. Okay, can everybody see the BrightID seed group nomination form? Okay. I'll just read it. The group should be composed of a small number of helpers that can be found at a regular hangout place. So university is great, could be virtual. The group admins manage the group in the mobile app. So you use your BrightID app, and I'll show you my screen so that you can see what it looks like, because I'm a member of some groups. So on BrightID, it's no longer on the front page. There used to be something that was groups, but since people don't use groups as much, managing a group, very few people will manage a group. So with your college, with your university group, what will happen is you will have maybe a handful of people that are the admins of that group, and then you can you want to have enough people actually be in the group so that there's always someone that's a member of the group coming to all your at least someone is at every meeting that's a member of that group. But then to take advantage of the group, you don't actually have to be in the group. So the group is really just for like regulars and people that you trust that have been around for a while.
That really important aspect is anyone that's going to be a member of the group, that group needs to trust as like an ambassador of that group.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the actions of any group member is reflect on the group. And
Yep.
if any of the members were determined to be bad actors, or the whole group suffers and could lose its seed status.
Yeah, you could lose your seed status if someone in the group. So invite trusted people to your group, but then as far as making connections with the group, which is like the goal is you want to have people make connections to your group. You don't have to invite everyone into the group that's making connections with you. They can benefit from making connections with you and not be in the group. So there's kind of like the inner layer and then the outer layer. So keep good close tabs on the inner layer. The outer layer, you know, if someone shows up to your group meeting and you make connections with them, that's fine.
So next question is, right, is it okay if new students come and go, can you transfer the admin? Absolutely, you can.
Yes.
So the way it works is any admin can add or remove any other group member from being an admin. I guess, well, let them in. Any admin can let someone into the group or kick them out of the group or make them an admin.
Yeah, so you can easily, yeah, it's really easy to transfer ownership of the group as people come and go. Yeah, so good question. Okay, so groups, I tap on groups from the menu, and now I have some groups. So here's the one I was talking about, Song-a-dao. And then if I go in there, and I can create my own group, and then I can see who the members and admins are of the group. And then I can, there's a menu up at the top. And I can, from that menu, I can invite people, leave the group, copy the group ID. And so that copy the group ID, that's going to be important for the nomination form. So first make the group.
Which we should update with the new feature.
What do you
the
mean?
nomination form is still sending people back to the Explorer, but now we can
Oh
just tell them
yeah, good idea.
This is a brand new feature within the last 2 or 3 days, is that you can now copy the group code directly from the mobile app. You used to have to go on a wild goose chase to get it, and now it's just conveniently available.
Yeah, that's really nice. Okay, so yeah, I will update those instructions. But yeah, copy the group code, use the same name in the form that you named it. So you know, your admins don't have to be completely set, but you should, but you will need to you will need 3 different admins to start. So it's going to ask you who the administrators are, and it's going to ask you some some social network handles so that we can know who they are. Where can we find the community? So where do your meetings take place? What's the community about? And then how much seed quota is requested. So these are how many people you expect to make connections with your group during a given time frame. So let's say that you want to update your quota every 6 months, and you think that you're going to be adding 10 people a week. So you pick 250 as your quota. So so that's how you get a group started. And yeah, and then you can have fun. You can get everyone meets verified. And yeah, it's also becomes kind of like this point where people know to come to, like people from other groups can come to your group, etc. And so it can also be kind of like this gathering point where you can find and get to know other people who are already B2 verified, and you can get more people to be B2 verified. Okay, so let's see. Things take time because it has to be approved by the university. Yes, I will apply. Who can I contact in Discord or email? So look for anyone who's a star. Anyone in Discord who has the stars role, they are all members of seed groups, and they understand how seed groups work. So they'll be able to help you manage if you have any questions about your seed group. Yeah, so great questions. I'm really looking forward to adding it for your university and anyone else who wants to do the same thing. Yeah, please apply. Let's get some more seed groups. Seed groups are nice. I think in the future, we're going to rely less on them and more on kind of, I think with Aura, it's probably going to be families and friends and less community seed groups. But I still think it's helpful to find other people who know how to use BrightID, kind of beef up your connection list. It can't hurt. It can't hurt to actually get to know other people who are using BrightID. So yeah, I think no matter what happens in the future, having seed groups and having places where people are making BrightID connections can only be helpful.
In any time that you find yourself being a point of a lot of connection, you're going to have a better place in the social graph. If you've any group of people that you connect to that are real people that are trying to act honestly in the system, it is beneficial to you and to everyone around you.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll say about those super connector type of people, so with the Aura game, which I kind of see as the future of BrightID, it takes most, let's say 99% of the users are just there to get verified. They don't really want to like stick around with BrightID and make more connections and figure out how that works and help. They don't want to spend too much time helping other people to get verified. But there's going to be that 1% of people that do stick around and want to help other people get verified, do things like set up seed groups. Those people are going to be the ideal Aura players. And they're the ones who are going to be using the Aura app directly, helping to review people, helping to get people verified. And we would, our vision is that this is something that you get paid to do. So we want the best verifiers, the best connectors, the best Sybil hunters that are all using the Aura game. We want them to get paid, and you get paid based on how well you perform. So any skills that you acquire in helping people to get BrightID verified and being able to tell the difference between real people and Sybils, all those skills will transfer into the Aura game and be something that you can get paid to do. So I encourage you to practice now, get used to being a BrightID super connector, and then you'll be just that much more ready to play the Aura game when it comes out. Welcome, Victor. It's nice to have another person from the core team.
Hello, thank you.
Do we have any questions? We already had some excellent questions about seed groups and B2 verification. Any other questions? Well, I don't see any. Are there any topics that people wanted to bring up? Okay, so I think one thing that's kind of interesting is, and I think we might have mentioned it on the last call, but I'm going to try for next week's AMA to bring in some people from the Gitcoin fraud detection team. So I'm a member of that team, kind of like a source level expert on that topic. And so I help to review the proposals that are made to the Gitcoin DAO for fraud detection, and which includes Sybil detection. So I want to invite some people onto our next week call. We're going to have a meeting. I think it's an internal meeting, so I don't think I can just invite everybody here. But on Monday, we're going to have a big meeting to discuss integration points between BrightID and Gitcoin, as far as like how can we take these side-by-side efforts that are going on to fight against Sybils. How can we best combine our efforts and move forward. So I will bring some of the team members into our next community call so they can talk about what we discussed at that meeting, maybe make some presentations. But the way I see it is that Aura is, which we've mentioned a couple times, is the toolbox. Like the goal of Aura is to become the best possible toolbox for Sybil hunters to find and expose Sybil attacks in the BrightID network and beyond, like any place where Sybil attacks are happening. So the integration that I see with the fraud detection team of Gitcoin is that we empower people who have the skill and the desire to go in and hunt Sybils and detect fraudulent behaviors in Gitcoin, to give their feedback, to have all the tools in front of them that they need to do a good job, and then be able to submit their findings. So I see Aura as being a potential kind of like a multi tool set where you can kind of choose your tools. Like some people will be using the hammer and saw, and some people will be using a chisel, and it's just, whatever tools work best for you. Some people will have a deep knowledge of Gitcoin, so they should be looking at data from Gitcoin to help with detecting Sybils, and then that can also feed into other places in Aura. Some people won't have any knowledge of Gitcoin, maybe they just have never used it, and so they won't use those tools. But we want to have a collection of any kind of tools that are useful anywhere in Aura. And so I think that's the answer of how things feed together from these different places.
Adam, I have a question for that.
Sure.
I understand how someone can use their positive Gitcoin behavior and like show that as an example of here's why I'm not a Sybil. On the flip side, how does it work when Gitcoin goes, this account on our system certainly appears to be a bad actor. We believe this account is a Sybil. How are they going to get that information to BrightID, to Aura, to us in a useful way? Right.
So as someone who's helped to architect, I'm going to unpin myself. I didn't realize it was pinned. Since you have been there helping to architect Aura, I think you already know about some of the signals that Aura players put into the system, and about bad vibes and and like flagging people for other Aura players for other reasons, right?
I guess what I mean is that we've talked about, right, it makes sense to have, right, hey, I'm a good Gitcoin user. I can get sort of validation from Gitcoin that Gitcoin agrees that I'm a good Gitcoin user, and I could somehow get that badge of goodness imported in the system. But if I'm a bad actor, I'm not going to welcome a bad badge on, like why would I'm not going to import a badge of bad behavior.
Yep. You're just going to move on to the next Sybil. You'll just say, well, that Sybil's used up. They found out that one. I'll just create 10 new Sybils.
And Gitcoin doesn't know, nor should they under our architecture, which they know they have a bad user. They know that user has BrightID, but they have no idea which BrightID user it is.
Right. So the thing that you said was, how can we take the data about these users are Sybil attackers and bring those back in? So what we can do is, so it's very likely that once you're found out, you move on and make some new Sybils. That those Sybil accounts are burned, they're used up, you can't use them anymore. But if for some reason they do continue to use those Sybils and they still have some sort of verification status for Gitcoin or other apps, then in the Aura game, you can make sure, you can basically put the nail in the coffin for that Sybil attacker and say, like, okay, we've found this one out. let's make sure that they can't keep using this Sybil here. And you can also see, because you have the graph in front of you, you can see like, okay, well, a lot of these Sybils that have been getting verified for Gitcoin seem to be connected to these other users. And so you can kind of see in the graph like how these things are happening, even if the user doesn't opt in and say like, yes, I want my Gitcoin account to be linked here. You can so the person who's helping to verify them in Aura will know that person and know about that person and be able to like say things about that person. So so let's say that let's say that let's say that I'm a Gitcoin user and I've created a bunch of Sybil accounts, and I'm doing shady things with all of my accounts. And my friend is helping me to get Aura verified. And we both know that we're both Gitcoin users. I'm going to look at that person's, I guess, official account and use that to determine whether I think that they're a good actor.
Right.
If that person has created a bunch of other accounts, there's a couple things that might happen. One is that data just never gets imported into Aura because that person keeps it a secret. Or if that person, if for whatever reason, being a good Gitcoin actor is useful for certain verifications, then you'll see what other Aura players will see in the graph is they'll see, okay, there's this area where we might expect there to be a bunch of Gitcoin users here, but there's not. There's a bunch of BrightID users that you would sort of expect to be using Gitcoin, but they're not. Why not? And that's kind of suspicious. So that I think that's the best you can do. You can't force, like, there's no way to force a bad actor to import their bad status into BrightID or even into the Aura game, but you can kind of notice when things are missing. So yeah, I think that's the best you can do, but that still might be useful information. Like that still might be it. So on the one hand, you can prove that, okay, this account is good, so that's helpful. You can, it's like another piece of evidence that you can use to say for the person that's reviewing you in Aura to say,
I totally get the good side.
Yeah,
I'm just worried about
the bad side. The bad side is less effective. Let's put it that way. It's like, because number one, you can try to hide your Sybils, but then also as soon as those Sybils become found out, you can kind of just like abandon them and move on. But what does show up in Aura though, is you can kind of see that people. So let's say that I'm evaluating someone in Aura, and I see that they had a bunch of accounts to a bunch of people that used to be active, used to be making connections, used to be verified, and suddenly they just stop using those accounts. That's pretty suspicious. And let's say that there's 20 accounts that stop being used, and now 20 new accounts start being used or something like that. These are suspicious activities that will show up in Aura for people who are evaluating the users. So you can see in what region of the graph, like who they're connecting to get verified, what they've been doing, whether they have been using Gitcoin and whether they stopped. Something that would be really, so I think sometimes Sybil attackers can make mistakes and slip up. So let's say someone decides, okay, I think I figured out how to get a good Gitcoin verification badge for my Sybils, and so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to import them into BrightID. So now I've connected to 10 Sybil accounts, and they all have good BrightID citizen badges. And so I think, okay, this is helping me to trick people to think that these are real people. But then something happens and you lose that status. So it expires and you're no longer able to renew it. So that can look really suspicious. So let's say you have a region of the graph where there's a bunch of Gitcoin users over here. And the honest users keep getting their Gitcoin status renewed. And so it looks like, okay, this is healthy. These are honest Gitcoin users. And then you notice over here, there were a bunch of Gitcoin users that did have the Gitcoin badge, and then they don't anymore. That looks highly suspicious. So these are the kind of signals that you can get by importing the Gitcoin, like people's Gitcoin activity into Aura. But I also think that it's not just that, it's that you can yeah, I guess because I guess if I were creating Sybil accounts and they were also using Gitcoin, like abusing Gitcoin, and someone asked me okay, who are these people that you're connected to? I would like to do some research on them. One strategy is just to deny that they're Gitcoin users at all. Just say they're not Gitcoin users, because you realize that if you tried to get them, like if you tried to get them to have like a good Gitcoin user badge or something, that you risk someone like trying to dive deeper into it and then discovering that like these are not real accounts. Like if someone says, okay, well, like I see that this person over here is a good Gitcoin user, could you share the account with me? And then you have to scramble and you're like, no, I can't, or it's going to look suspicious if someone tries to dive deeper into that. So one strategy is just to say, okay, it's too risky, I'm not going to do it. But if you do try to take that risk, then yeah, so you could potentially get those people like enhance their verification, but you're kind of setting yourself up for the problem scenario that I just mentioned. So I don't know. Yeah, it's really risky, I guess is the point. So if that risk discourages people from fraudulently importing like good badges from Gitcoin, then I guess it's doing its job. So anyways, yeah, I think just having the opportunity to like dive deeper into a Gitcoin account from the Aura interface is already useful, because it lets people, it kind of makes people think twice before they're willing to attach their BrightID user, especially a fraudulent one, to a Gitcoin account, because of what might happen. Anyways, I think that's the best we can go for. Oh yeah, so Herman said POAP and BrightID working together would be nice. I agree with that. So I think that's another thing where you could look through a user's activity, and if you know that someone's been collecting POAPs, then if you're doing research on them, you could say, okay, show me your POAP collection. Show me like which accounts you're using and collecting POAPs with. And keep in mind, like when Aura players are doing this research, it's just with the people that they already know. So it's not like this privacy invasive thing. It's not like some agent from somewhere that you don't know is going to come and ask you a bunch of questions and like delve into your Ethereum addresses and your Gitcoin accounts. It's people that you already know and trust that are helping you to get verified in Aura. So it's your friends, your family members, who are just kind of spot checking and doing their due diligence on you to make sure that you're not engaging in Sybil attacks. So you can show them, okay, here's your POAPs. Now, if something were to happen, and let's say I expect you to have a bunch of POAPs because I know you and I know what you've been doing, and you're not able to produce an account that has those POAPs, then to me that's suspicious. That's it could indicate that maybe you've connected them to some other BrightID account that you've gotten verified with someone else, or in any case, it could be indicative of a Sybil attack. So yeah, so I think having these things where you kind of like, you already know that a user has been using something, and you can link that to their BrightID, but only for you personally. I think that that's valuable. So I think we can add that to the Aura toolbox. So things like, checking POAPs, checking the Gitcoin activity. There's other things. I mean, you could potentially do things like Twitter. Even though Twitter, because right now we're talking about attaching your BrightID to things that are not public knowledge. So we're not talking about making a public statement that says this BrightID is connected to this Twitter account. It's more like saying, okay, within my circle of friends, like the people who I already know, who already know my Twitter account and already use it, already know that they can connect to me through it. I'm going to reveal that in conjunction with my BrightID. So that way, if I reveal one Twitter account to Philip, who's reviewing me, and then let's say Victor wants to review me and I reveal a different Twitter account to him, that obviously looks very suspicious.
Right. We know there's a lot of Twitter Sybil accounts out there.
Yeah.
And they come in a whole bunch of different forms. There's totally acceptable forms where it's like, hey, I've got my professional self and I've got my fun self, and I express them differently. I'm not trying to take advantage of anything. I have two Twitter accounts and I say very different things. One of them's the fun one's anonymous because whatever, I just want to be able to do what I want to do, and that's fine. And then there's other Twitter accounts that someone literally spun up 1,000 of them to cause problems and sell poll activity, and those are wildly different things.
Yeah, and that's why Twitter can't be the definitive answer. So if you remember Proof of Humanity, what was it called? Humanity DAO.
Humanity DAO. Yeah. Humanity
DAO was a really interesting experiment where it was just based around Twitter accounts, and yeah, that's going to fall down for the reasons that you just mentioned. But if you're a good Aura player and you understand what's possible and you understand how far you can get by verifying a Twitter account, that it shouldn't get you all the way there, but it's maybe just a piece that adds to it. If someone can show me a Twitter account that is obviously them, it's probably not going to be one that it's not going to be like a revelation to me. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, you're saying here's your Twitter account. Oh, you have a Twitter account. I didn't know that. It's gonna be more like, we already know each other because you review people that you already know. I know what your Twitter account is, and that's the one that you should share with me. And that's just like an extra like piece of information that shows that you haven't been Sybil attacking Twitter, I guess you could say. But
once a week, I like your post on Twitter. I'm well aware of what your Twitter account is. And there's some way that you can prove to me, not to the whole world, but prove to me that that Twitter account that I know to be yours and your BrightID are linked in such a way you're saying that Twitter account is controlled by the same person that controls this BrightID.
Yeah. And so it's actually, I mean, I don't even, I don't know how far down the line that a Twitter integration would be, because the reason it's not that valuable is, okay, so yes, people do Twitter attack Sybil, or sorry, people do Sybil attack Twitter, but that's not they're because they're not using BrightID to protect against that. It's like it's not super valuable to try to look for Sybil attacks that are happening on Twitter. However, because Gitcoin is using BrightID, I think that one's much more valuable. So, people are already BrightID users. They're using Gitcoin. They get a bonus from using BrightID with Gitcoin and having a unique BrightID account. So if someone is Sybil attacking Gitcoin and we find out about it in BrightID, that's much more valuable. So that one's a much higher priority. I think POAPs, do people like Sybil attack POAPs? I don't know, but
I'm going to go with wildly yes. So,
yeah.
I think that there's speculation and dreams of people that like there'll be some Twitter air, some POAP airdrop.
That's true.
And I think that we've seen a lot of people being way too interested in getting random POAPs for things. It's just like, dude, it's a ticket stub that you came to an AMA. The ravenous desire that there was from people for getting that. Like, I get if you feel like you're part of something, and you wanna use it as your POAP, have POAPs for it. I get it, but it certainly seemed to me that a lot of people just wanted to get POAPs for the sake of getting POAPs, which I find questionable. So
yeah, definitely.
I certainly think that there's ripe opportunity for working with POAP. It is partially useful data, but I have POAPs in, I don't know, at least 10 different wallets, and I'm not doing anything malicious. Just that like, in the context of whatever reason I was showing up at that, like, that's the wallet that it made sense to use it in. Like, I didn't want to tie my identity to this, or a whole variety of reasons. But my guess is I have POAPs in 10 different accounts.
Yeah,
and I wasn't trying to do anything inappropriate.
And so I think we have yet to see a POAP. Oh, look, Humpty's here. So I think we have yet to see a POAP where they are requiring BrightID before you get the POAP. But once people start doing that, then it becomes interesting, because that is definitely something that you want to track from something like Aura. Because then you could say, oh, like, hey, you were at ETH Denver, and I remember the ETH Denver POAPs were BrightID verified. So show me yours.
I saw you at ETH Denver. We shared a coffee together. I know
and so
like POAPs.
And so if you're like, okay, yeah, if the person's making some lame excuse like, well, actually, I didn't actually really get one. It's like, that starts to become suspicious. And the reason that someone might not want to admit to that is because they're, they shared one POAP with one person, so they used two different BrightID accounts. They collected two POAPs, and now they're trying to like share one with one verifier and share another one with another verifier. And so they'll be, that's another one of those risky behaviors where it's like, it works until an Aura player starts asking you about it. And then it's like, it no longer works, because now you've got to, like, Aura player A is going to see that you revealed this one to them, and Aura player B is going to see that you revealed that one to them. And so that's, it's no longer good anymore. So anyways, so anything that uses BrightID, is definitely a good candidate for bringing that information into Aura and letting Aura players kind of compare notes with other Aura players and be like, okay, yeah, I was researching Adam and he had all these connections, and you were researching Adam and he had like a totally different set of connections. Okay, that's not good. That's a bad sign. Or I was researching Adam and he told me he was using this Gitcoin account, but when you researched him, he said he was using this Gitcoin account. Like that's also a no-go. So because I think the more of these types of things that people ask for, and again, these are people you already know that are asking you for this evidence, the more it becomes risky to try to Sybil attack these different platforms that are using BrightID. So I think it's going to be helpful.
I just want to welcome Humpty. Glad to see you, and that's a good time to mention that that thanks to Humpty and Orange, you can now take your BrightID verification and turn it into a verifiable credential attached to your decentralized identifier. Right, that's up and live. I went and did that. I made that connection. I haven't used it anywhere, but right, Humpty, that is now true. I could get that issued as a VC.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to pretend to be Austin Griffith. He does the little punching.
Oh yeah, of course.
I love that guy and his bow ties. Such a character. Yes, using BrightID, you can create verifiable credentials of your reputation. So yeah, that's a wonderful integration. I think I'm personally always a big fan of whatever BrightID is doing. I think it's a hugely important tool in this space, and it's facilitating people to own their digital identities in a very simple way, which, you know what, it's not always very easy. We create tooling that makes sense, but it's not very easy to use, and BrightID is super simple to use. So I'm happy to be working alongside you, building with this vision of identity and reputation.
Yeah, and just to bring you up to speed, we were talking about so Herman's been asking some really good questions. And we were talking about like what the Aura game would, how it could use, or how BrightID could use information that comes from other places. So we talked about the Gitcoin fraud detection team and how Gitcoin has this rich data from Gitcoin users that they use to uncover Sybil attacks. So they go beyond what BrightID does. And sometimes they come up with data that seems like could be useful to BrightID, because they'll come back and say, well, these users are BrightID verified, but they seem to be a part of this Sybil ring. So, you want this data, right? And the challenge is, well, how do we accept that data and still have all the privacy that we want to have in BrightID? So we don't want to force anyone to reveal more about themselves than they have to. So what we've been talking about is how in the Aura game, you're going to be revealing things to people that already know those things about you. So it's not really a revelation. It's more like, okay, just show me, like, I already know you're a Gitcoin user. Just tell me again which your main account is. Just that sort of thing. And it's someone who already knows you. They already know you're a Gitcoin user, and they ask that sort of question, so that if you try to give one answer to Philip and a different answer to me, and then Philip and I compare notes, we're like, okay, there's a problem here. Like, this could be a Sybil attack. Mm-hmm. So those sorts of things. So there's ways to do it that does not involve creating like a public registry of all this information, like tell us your Twitter account, tell us your Gitcoin account, tell us this, put it in a public registry for everyone to see, because I question the value in that. And we were talking about Humanity DAO, how Humanity DAO, it was all based around public Twitter accounts. And it was like, okay, tell us which Twitter account is yours. And we're going to, and then you prove your ownership of it by like posting your Ethereum address in there and saying that you're registering for Humanity DAO. So that part's fine. You can prove that you control it. But then they're looking for uniqueness. So they're looking for a way to know that you only have one Twitter account, that you didn't register 100 Twitter accounts with Humanity DAO. Well, they left that up to the community to evaluate. So the Twitter accounts go through this evaluation period where everyone looks at the Twitter accounts and is like, yep, that's a good one. But the problem is, you can buy a Twitter account for a few dollars on the black market, and you can tell like what kind of Twitter account you want. I want one from India that has had like, has been in use for at least 5 years and whatever. Like I can pick what I want. And then I can just take that, my extra Twitter account, and register that. And because it's people that don't really know each other, it's kind of like this anonymous group community that's just reviewing, they're just reviewing Twitter accounts that they really know nothing about. I can easily slip those through. And in fact, now that Humanity DAO is kind of dead, I'm not ashamed to say that just in the name of kicking the tires, I registered multiple accounts. I didn't actually collect the UBI for them, but I did register multiple accounts. So yeah, I mean, it's not, as predicted, it's not hard to do. So the better solution, in my view, is use people who already know. Like if I've known for years that is your Twitter account that you're using, you can't come to me and tell me, this is my Twitter account. Like you just can't do that. It's just not going to work. And then also I don't have to put it on a public registry somewhere. We don't have to expose to the world that this Twitter account is linked to this BrightID or this Ethereum address or something like that. We don't have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, 2 points to that, I think, that I want to touch on. One of them is I think Twitter is a good source of, truth in terms of, someone's proof of work over time. Like, but I don't think that it necessarily needs to be the do-all end-all of digital identity. Obviously, a good reason for that is the current scam that's going on. I'm sure everyone here who's ever talked about crypto or Web3 on their Twitter account is getting tagged by these check-marked accounts on Twitter, offering up, access to NFT projects or whatnot. And you click on those links and you'll get your funds or your assets drained. Really crappy experience for anybody who might be new and doesn't know better, right? So I think in terms of using that as someone's verified identity, I think to some extent that's great, but definitely not the do-all end-all, like I said, of your digital identity. There's definitely better ways of proving that identity, BrightID definitely being one of those. The other, to your point, in terms of not putting this information in public records. I mean, that's what verifiable credentials are for, right? Being able to benefit from the privacy by design nature of it, where you can prove things, but they're not necessarily accessible to everyone, right? They're provable, but they don't necessarily need to be broadcasted. Certainly I think that's the current challenge with like soulbound NFTs and VCs, where I think that there's two schools of thoughts there, and I think that there's value to both. But I think to what extent, right? Are you using one to prove your identity, to prove your reputation, and where you kind of take that next step in terms of the need for privacy encryption that DIDs and VCs enable. So yeah, I agree. And so one of the things in terms of like being able to benefit from Gitcoin data and BrightID data, that's exactly why Orange exists, is to be able to like bridge all of these different data sources in Web3. I was actually just having a talk with someone who wants to use Orange as a way to enable new opportunities to their communities, right? What I was talking about is like, I think that Orange is almost like a marketplace of sorts for discovering reputation models, but also for discovering Web3 data. There's been many times that I've talked to projects and they're like, oh my gosh, like I never knew about BrightID. It's like suddenly you start seeing different projects that are building in this space, consistent with those values of Web3, privacy, decentralization, ownership of identity. And, really, I think that is a really, for me, wonderful and unexpected value to what we're building there. So really excited to be able to onboard BrightID, and I'm really excited for like additional ways of using it in the BrightID ecosystem, like Aura as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we were also talking about how the attackers behave, like what is an attacker's behavior when they know that that there's a chance that that their verifiers are gonna compare notes about their Sybils that they're trying to get verified.
Yep.
And if I put myself in the mind of an attacker, I'm thinking like, I'm just not even going to try it. Like it's just too risky. So,
right.
So I'm going to lose out on, I'm not going to be able to like link fake Twitter accounts. I'm not going to be able to link fake Gitcoin accounts. I'm not going to be able to link, or when I say fake Gitcoin accounts, I mean like duplicate ones. I'm not going to be able to link duplicate, like if I collected 2 POAPs when I was only supposed to collect 1, I'm not going to be able to like use them both to get verified. And so I'm just going to have to, like, it's going to shut down some of my attacks before they even start, some of my attack vectors. So, so yeah, I mean, so that's why I think it is valuable to be able to review this outside information, even though it may seem like, well, why do you need to review it? Like, I know this is your Gitcoin account. Well, because if you're a Sybil attacker, now you don't get to use that. Now suddenly you have to pretend that you weren't a Gitcoin user to somebody. Like you'll have to, like, let's say I want to make 2 accounts and get them both verified. I've got 2 friends that both know me, and I want to use like 2 different BrightIDs. Now I have to say, to one of them, I can say, yeah, I'm a Gitcoin user. Here's my Gitcoin account that I've been using, and they can see that I linked it to my BrightID. And then to the other one that's trying to verify me, I've got to like somehow pretend that I've never used Gitcoin. And to me, that's like, for me personally, that's impossible. Like I can't, like, I would have to pick someone who just really doesn't know me very well to and like somehow trick them into thinking that I've never used Gitcoin or something like that. So yeah, every little bit of evidence that people might ask for makes it that much trickier to pull off a Sybil attack. So so I think it will be useful to add those in.
Yeah, verifiable proofs. I'm excited for our new series that I'm hoping to kick off next week on Twitter Spaces. So
so tell me about what's the time on that, like, and how do we find out about it?
I'm going to put a let us meet out there for everyone. I mean, we've got quite a few people that jumped into the Crypto Sapiens Discord. So for anybody who doesn't know, been hosting a podcast on the topic of Web3, more general pod, really not focused so much on one topic. And this season, because we do go by seasons and we usually are aligned with the Bankless DAO seasons, because that's where this was originally bootstrapped within Bankless DAO. We are launching 2 new series, one on diversity, inclusion, and equity, and one on digital identity. And the former actually already has a Let Us Meet done. They have a date and time set up, which is going to be Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is my time zone. Ours, the digital identity one, is hasn't been defined yet, but we have quite a few people that I've been privileged enough to connect with over the last year that are building in the space to participate either as co-hosts or just guests, maybe some as sponsors to support the development of this. And so I'm going to put the Let Us Meet out there. We're all going to say what our availability is, and then we're going to try to get one date and time so that it is a weekly recurring call. Maybe one week we all may be available, maybe 1 week, 1 or 2 of us will, but it's really to drive forward these discussions consistently to demystify the space of Web3 identity, because it's like I said, it's really complicated. And I think some of us may have the wrong idea of what digital identity is, right? Like some of us talk about just owning an NFT being our digital identity. And I think that may be true in some instances, but not always. There needs to be more depending on what we're really trying to gain access to, right? Especially if we're talking about like reputation truths.
I saw a good one last night. So somebody sold a zombie CryptoPunk yesterday for 1,000 ETH or something like that. Great, good for them. A different CryptoPunk Twitter account who uses a hoodie came on and said, I sold that. What should I go spend all my ether on now? What should I go sweep? And another punk said, yo, don't listen to this person. That punk that they're using as their avatar is not theirs. We're pretty sure it belongs to a lost account. So, hey, pretty smart. If you're going to like fake using it, use someone that's lost. And they are 100% definitely not the person that sold the zombie, because I know who that ain't this person. And that here's this person who's masquerading as for the clout. Just an example. Clearly, you're and Twitter verifying your NFT. I don't think is the answer. I'm not exactly sure what is.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me think of Nate Alex and his fake Twitter verified NFT that he really owns. So he owns a rainbow cat doodle, a very special doodle, very important.
Oh yeah, his little
guy.
octagon thing.
So he made it into the octagon,
yeah,
but not officially. And all these people like give him a hard time, and he sort of like laughs about it because he actually does own the thing. But he's like, dude, anybody can go on with any old NFT, including, right, it's the right picture, but like not the right contract, and you can get it verified.
right.
So,
yeah, because you could launch an NFT with that image, like a smart contract, right? And then verify that with Twitter, but it doesn't go to the original contract. But
correct,
most people don't know that. You
could name it similar things, right? How many copies of CryptoPunks exist? And it's a lot. Like, forget the derivative. I mean, the derivatives, it just gets silly. But there's a whole bunch of just things that are exactly identical to the real ones, except they're not.
Mm-hmm.
But seemingly you could get that verified. I don't think Twitter's limiting the collections that are available. I think you could follow through and go to OpenSea and see, but like
most people don't do that.
Yeah.
They just see the hexagon and go, yep, that's verified. That's good.
or not even the hexagon, because most people, it appears, have decided they don't, as much as people wanted Twitter to like integrate NFTs and Ethereum, they're not actually happy with how it's gone down.
Right.
So I see a lot of NFT PFPs in my feed. Very few of them are hexagons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that most of them probably are the legitimate owners of those.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm one of those folks that I was happy to see Twitter, moving forward with some sort of integration. But I don't think that, one, charging people to do that was the right way to go. I get it. There's costs associated to do that, but you got to be a Twitter Blue member and pay a monthly subscription to be able to.
You shouldn't charge that. Y'all should just pay for Twitter Blue, though. It is worth $3 a month to have 30 seconds to edit your stupid tweet. It's just worth it, because when you see, it's what, like, the view that you see as you're composing a tweet is just a little different than the view you see when it like goes up as a completed thing. And if you don't have it, right, what it does is just, you can set the delay, and I set mine, it's like anywhere from like 5 to 30 seconds. I set mine at 30, but like I sit there and I read it and make sure like that's actually what I meant to say.
Right.
And I don't know, a third of the time I'm like, oh yeah, I like spelled that wrong or did something stupid. And to me, the $3 a month value of simply that feature with
Right.
including nothing else.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're not to go fall too deep into that rabbit hole, but I think the distinction you're making is Twitter is good, the subscription is good on Twitter to be able to be a better Twitter user, but not necessarily to bridge Web 2 and Web 3, right? Like I shouldn't be paying to bridge my Web 3 identity to a Web 2 platform. Like if you really wanted to create something to benefit the Web 3 community, it should have been more aligned to the way that we operate in the Web 3 space. But certainly to create better tweets, you know, to be a better Twitter user, probably is a better user experience to pay for it. But for me, yeah, the monetization of niche community, like we are here in Web 3, I think it didn't sit well with me. The other thing is, I don't necessarily want a record of my Web3 wallet on a Web 2 company that can be audited at any time. I was like, I don't need you to create that type of connection between the two. It didn't make sense to me. Not saying that OpenSea isn't the same, because obviously I sign in with my OpenSea when I buy things, and if they're a US-based company, if the US government says give us access to all your records, they're gonna go.
The IRS has a front row seat to OpenSea.
I feel like OpenSea is to Web3 what Facebook was to Web 2, in terms of like suddenly we have no privacy because we're sharing everything on Facebook, and the government can easily say, give us all of that information on that user. They don't necessarily need to go through the same, challenges to access our information. I think with Web3, it's like, oh, just give us access to that user's wallet, and we'll be able to kind of get access to that without necessarily going through the same rigorous challenges that are needed, I guess, legally required.
So I could keep going for a while, but at this point we have gone meaningfully over our normal time, and we've gone meaningfully off topic.
Yeah, I think we should end it for the sake of people watching on YouTube, so that it.
Oh yeah, we're recording this, huh?
Yeah, this is going on YouTube. But yes, let's make sure. So you're going to announce the Let Us Meet for the new set of Twitter Spaces in the Sapiens, Crypto Sapiens Discord. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so I'll share the Let Us Meet there. All of you, please do let me know what your availability is, and I'll try to get it where most people are available to have this recurring session on digital identity in the Web3 space.
Sounds good. Yep. All right. Well, we'll see you all next week. Hopefully we'll have a special guest then. Thanks for joining us. Take care, everybody.